Where should I begin a story that spans 25 years? The material I've shot contains endless possibilities. New York, for example, home of my parents and brother Yuval. Or maybe Los Angeles, where my second brother Yoav lives. My home in Tel Aviv. A scene with my mother during her last visit to Israel.
לא הרבה אני אעשה לך, רק קצת.
It's the end of summer. As always, before she returns to New York, my mother spends the day with my children. She collects a handful of curls as souvenirs till she visits again next summer.
זה של נועה וזה של עידו.
אימא'לה שלי, אני אהיה באווירון בלי להגיד לך שלום? לא, אני בבית. עכשיו אני יוצאת. אני טסה ב-11:30. ואני צריכה עכשיו לצאת מהבית. לאבי צלצלתי, דיברתי עם אורנה, עם הכל בסדר. אימא'לה שלי, תשמרי על עצמך. נורא עצוב לי. כן. כן. שלום עידו. אימא'לה שלום.
My mother and grandmother always say their goodbyes on the phone. It's part of a farewell ritual that repeats itself every summer for 25 years, ever since my family and I emigrated to America. The following morning, my mother flies to New York, and life in Tel Aviv resumes its normal routine. I've always liked to travel, ever since I was my son's age. Nitsa, my mom, and Dori, my grandma, used to take me for rides on bus number 19. For a single fare, we would travel along a route that circled the entire city. Ido's kindergarten reminds me of the one I attended as a boy. Tel Aviv then was a small, almost intimate city. Today it's still the place I call home. But there were years when I visited here as a tourist, and my home was in New York. The story begins in 1966, the year my father took us to America. I found I was leaving Israel when I was 9 years old, coming out of the desert into civilization, out of nowhere.
What are you talking about?
Talking about the year we left Israel,
Yeah,
1966.
it was a very good year.
For me, my whole life was a street, a house, and a garden. That was my life.
I did a convention, a congress, in October '66, which was considered one of the best in Israel. It was a very good year. and I postponed our leaving because of that Congress.
It was a very bad year for me then.
It was a good year for tourism. We made profit. Yeah, but you can't say.
One day, a new set of luggage appeared in our house. It was the winter of '66. My father worked for a travel agency in Tel Aviv, while my mother stayed home to raise 3 children. I remember the day my father told us about a job he was offered by a travel agency in New York. I didn't understand his enthusiasm. It was a time before television in Israel. What could a 9-year-old know about America? I didn't want to leave my friends, my neighborhood, and my school. On that day, my brother Yoav, who was 4, fell into a bucket of water and announced, "I fell into Mommy's ocean." Angry and upset, I locked myself in my room. In December of '66, we arrived in New York, unprepared for the freezing cold, the wind, and the snow. The next day, Mom went to buy us suitable clothing. 25 years have gone by. Long hours of flight have come between Yoav in Los Angeles, Yuval in New York, and myself in Tel Aviv. As kids, our age differences kept us apart. When we got older, we might have become close friends, but living so far apart has made that impossible. I'm going to America to visit my family. First stop is Los Angeles and my brother Yoav. I have a feeling that maybe we're both wondering about similar questions.
נראה טוב. קצת יותר שמן בפרצוף.
כן?
קצת.
אני השמנתי קצת.
קצת. אבל יש לך אותו הליכה. זה חיפשתי בכל לראות מישהו הולך ככה. יש?
יש.
Let's go. Come on, man. I want to give you a hug.
Yeah, see you later. תגיד, יואב, מה אתה עושה בעיר הזאת בעצם?
אני אוהב את LA. באמת, נפלתי פה לאיזו תקופה קצרה ונשארתי. החלטתי להישאר. Things, you know, things happen.
מה אתה אוהב בעיר?
אני אוהב שאתה יכול להיות לבד, אתה לא... אנשים לא יושבים לך על הראש, אתה יכול לחיות את החיים שלך בכל הניג'ס של ניו יורק. It's like living in a big city without the crowd, without a lot of the negative things about living in a city on a large scale.
כמו תל אביב, בקיצור.
Yes, אבל זה לגמרי אחרת מבחינת ה-mentality. זה לגמרי שונה, אין לחץ פה. בארץ יש... טוב, לא צריך להגיד לך.
לחץ. חמות, נשים, צבים, מילואים.
צבים, מילואים.
אבל כולם מדברים עברית.
גם פה.
מה רע? תגיד לי, מה רע? שמש, בית מרפסת, חניה פרטית,
שקט.
My father always says that only a unified and close family can provide us with warmth and support. Living in faraway Tel Aviv, it's something I miss.
Welcome to Fantasy Island. miss living life with you. מה חשוב? טוב, אתם רוצים להתקלח? יש לי פה מלגות.
My first visit in Los Angeles was years ago, when we traveled from coast to coast. In our big American car, we set out to discover our new country. My father, successful at work, adapted with ease to the new culture and lifestyle. He wanted to show us the abundance and opportunity that America could offer. My father's enthusiasm was challenged by my mother's growing sense of isolation.
קשה מאוד, הפך אותי למרירה מאוד קשה. מאוד קשה. עד כדי כך שאני פיתחתי בסיסטמטיות שנאה עיוורת למקום. ואז תמיד אמרתי שום דבר לא טוב באמריקה, שום דבר לא טוב, ממש שום דבר. כל דבר שבארץ זה טוב, זה תמיד היו זורקים לי. כל דבר בארץ זה הכי טוב, באמריקה שום דבר לא טוב.
What Yamaha do you have?
21. Sax
Yes,
player.
21.
I'm a sax player.
That's funny. Sax player who wants to play bass,
Piano,
wants to
really.
get a keyboard.
Yeah. Steve, I didn't know where you were. Listen to this.
3 years ago, Yoav left New York and came to Los Angeles to work as a musician. He now divides his time between the store and the recording studio.
אתה אמריקאי?
אמריקאי זה מילה, אני לא יודע למה אתה מתכוון. אם אני אמריקאי מאיזה תרבותית, מה? שורשית?
מה שאתה רוצה.
לא, שורשית אני לא אמריקאי. אבל אני חי באמריקה, אז אני לא חושב על עצמי כאמריקאי. עד היום הזה, אני תופס את עצמי אומר, האמריקאים האלה. אני אף פעם לא הרגשתי אמריקאי. זה פה באלה קצת יותר, כי יש יותר אנשים שכאילו רודפים אחרי אותו דבר, ואתה ממש רואים את זה ורואים את ההישגים. אז אתה רוצה להיכנס למודה האמריקאי הזאת. קליפורניה. שזה אמריקה בעצם, זה the American dream.
יואב אבל, אתה זוכר את הסיפור שהוא היה בכיתה א'? הוא בא הביתה ואמר לי, אני לא רוצה שיקראו לי יואב יותר. אמרתי לו, מה אתה מדבר שטויות? הוא רצה להיות כמו כל הילדים, והיה להם קשה לבטא את שמו. אני שואלת, איך אתה רוצה שיקראו לך? ג'ק. אמרתי, ג'ק? בחיים לא מותק שלי. לא, לך לא יקראו ג'ק. בדיוק ג'ק בחרת לעצמך?
Back in the mid-50s, before their wedding, my mother asked my father to change his name. This was a common practice in Israel among immigrants seeking a new identity. Victor Gormezano, an Egyptian Jew, was transformed into Chaim Goren, an Israeli. Inside the Jewish cemetery in Alexandria, my father can be Victor Gormezano once again. Names from the past remind him of his childhood in Egypt.
These are names with people you lived with. Rachel Feder over there. Feder. I was with Feder at school, schoolmate. What do you have here? Nadler, of course. Gabai, played basketball with a guy Gabbai. Sicurel, of course, every Curiel, Mizrahi, De Botton. It's Marcel's father. You know, Marcel Hefetz, my bosom friend, that's his father. Mark Hefez. He died in 1948, I remember. I went to the funeral.
You were here.
Oh yes, 1948 we're still here. But this is him, absolutely.
"40 years after immigrating to Israel, my father returns to Alexandria for the first time. I'm looking for clues to an Egyptian identity that became Israeli and then American, between Alexandria, Tel Aviv, and New York.
One thing which is amazing is that there is a certain smell to the sea here in Alexandria. And now as I smell the sea, I realize that I've never smelled that smell anywhere in the world but here. The salty smell of the sea. I grew up here. I was born here, Alexandria. لا نسيت بس 40 سنة بنتكلم نسيت شوف
صبر امريكي
Egypt
صبر امريكي I dream have صبر امريكي
Why you want American passport?
America good
Yeah.
Just
They like to say American. They
no
like to
more
live
no
here.
more good America it's not
Arab good
Egypt very nice Egypt
no
very nice no America you
atmosphere
make,
Egypt
no
good
money America you make money but there's nothing to spend it on no social life يعني سحاب ولا فيش
انا معاك
ولا تروح
no feeling
ايوه برافو you work all day you go home television خلاص.
In the late 1940s, Alexandria was a cosmopolitan city, caressed by a lazy Mediterranean sun. Muslims, Christians, and Jews lived here in peaceful coexistence. On Delta Street, in a cafe near his childhood home, my father looks for familiar faces.
This is our flat. It used to be our flat. Certainly looks different. This used to be such a nice place to live in. But I gather that after 40 years things do change. But I never imagined it would be in such a state of dilapidation.
How do you feel? Do you feel like you're part? You've been telling everybody, I'm Egyptian. Are you Egyptian? Do you feel Egyptian?
Of
when
course
you're
I
here?
am Egyptian. I was born here. I have an affinity with this place. I spent 20 years of my life here, the formative years.
Towards the end of our visit, inside the cool darkness of Cafe Athenel's, where my grandparents used to sit, my father tries to discern between nostalgia and facts.
If you talk about your youth, I would say Alexandria. My maturing years would be Israel. And then later on, the business years would be America.
So who are you, Dad, anyway?
I'm a citizen of the world. Who am I? Yes, that's a good question.
New York, a city of the lonely and alienated, a metropolis for all the citizens of the world. Yet, I was surprised at my father's criticism in Alexandria of his life in America. For 25 years, day in and day out, he's traveled the route from home to work and back. The need to support a family has always been more important to my father than debating philosophical questions of identity and belonging. The job he accepted in 1966 improved our financial situation. After 2 years, he seized an opportunity to open his own business. It was something he'd always dreamed of doing. Years later, after success and disappointment, he's back at work in the travel business.
Yeah. Hello. Okay. Okay. Absolutely. You want to buy it? Then I have to take it out. Yeah. All right, I'll see. נראה אם האישה תרשה לי להכניס את זה הביתה, והיא בטח תזרוק אותי יחד עם הסייף. Yeah, בסדר, שמעון. I'll do that. Okay, bye-bye. זו הייתה הזדמנות בשבילי שלעולם לא יכולתי לקבל, זאת את ההישגים האלה לעולם לא יכולתי לעשות אותם או לקבל אותם בארץ. כי האפשרויות הרבה יותר גדולות פה.
הוא אף פעם לא אמר לי לא נחזור. זה מה שבעצם החזיק אותי ככה. להישאר פה עוד שנה ועוד שנה. כי הוא לא אמר, אף פעם הוא לא אמר, אנחנו לא חוזרים מהארץ, אנחנו חיים פה. הוא אמר, היום אנחנו פה. יכול להיות שמחר נהיה שם. כן, כן, אבל אני הייתי נאיבית, וכיוון ראיתי שהוא מצליח, אז לא רציתי לעמוד בדרכו, זה הכל. פשוט התבטלתי בפניו.
I remember a jingle from a TV commercial. Baseball, hot dogs, apple pie, and Chevrolet. Baseball, hot dogs, apple pie, and Chevrolet. Yuval, my youngest brother, was just 2 years old when we came to America.
Come on, like this. There you go, baby. Beauty, beauty, beauty. Yeah! Go, Tom. Come on, Tom in.
בייסבול. היה הספורט הראשון שיחקתי בארצות הברית, בתור ילד. נורא אהבתי את זה. גם אתה היית צועק כל הדברים האלה? בטח. זה חלק מהמשחק, תשמע, זה משחק די איטי בסך הכל. וחלק מהקטע זה הקריאות, זה האהבה מסביב. Let's go, baby! כמה 2-0.
You guys can't be on the field, man.
Sunday is a day for the traditional baseball game. Yuval plays on a team sponsored by a local pub. His teammates, all pub regulars, come from immigrant families like our own.
There you go. Attaboy, attaboy. Outfield, know what you're gonna do. Know what you're gonna do before. Keep reminding them. Yeah, Dan. Yeah, baby. Money. Return, Dan.
This is my friend Jerry. I know Jerry 8 years. Broke my hair, I'll kill you.
Where'd you meet UV?
On the corner.
On the
Bagel,
corner.
no, actually, bagel.
On the street corner.
Bagel,
Union Turnpike and Utopia.
What are you doing there?
Turnpike bagel.
Drinking beers.
Drinking buds. Come on, Rich. Farouk. This is the only Arab on the team right here. Farouk. These guys are New York City policemen.
That's right. New York's fine, and you're looking at them.
Even though I played baseball like most kids, I still didn't have any American friends. I just felt we had little in common.
Well, I don't hang out with those guys all the time. I hang out with them, well, primarily when we play softball. And I don't know. It beats hanging out with the Jewish crowd.
Why?
I don't know. I don't know any Jewish kids really. Do I? No. I don't know. Those are just guys from the neighborhood. Neighborhood guys that you know from hanging out at the bar or whatnot. I don't look at them as they have to be intellectual. They have to be certain standards. I feel I can adapt. That I have enough intelligence to adapt.
Sherwood Village in Queens, New York, has always been populated by immigrants. It was also our first home in America. We were impressed by the wooden floors, the laundry room in the basement, and television, things we never had in Israel. A year later, we were forced to move out when mice infiltrated the building's heating system. Yoav and I returned to our childhood home.
אני זוכר את התמונה הזאת עם הדברים האלה. אני זוכר את הגינה הזאת. אני זוכר איך נראתה הדירה מבפנים. This place is like a garbage dump. It's unbelievable. Unreal. אני לא רואה את זה ככה. אני לא רואה את זה כשכונה כמו שאנשים אחרים רואים את השכונה, כמו שאמא רואה את זה חוזרת לבורחו. This is no root. It's the same thing. I don't feel connected to this place. It's like it's a thing that happened, and I can remember it, but I don't feel any connection to it. I don't feel connection to this. I don't feel any connection to Callaway Street either. No sentimental, nostalgic connection. Maybe I'm just such an insensitive fuck. Maybe.
My father was successful at work and comfortable in his new environment. I had difficulties with mine. The public school I attended seemed like a prison, filled with immigrant children from around the world. Chinese, Indians, Latin Americans, Italians, and one Israeli. The English language was a wall between us. It seemed that my mother and I were the only ones frustrated with our life in America. We both wished for the same thing, to return home. 25 years later, a different wish has come true for my mother, as she travels every day to the Sculpture Center in Manhattan.
When I came here in the beginning, it was like, another world for me. I mean, completely something. First of all, for the size of it. It was like huge. And all the people. And the first experience in the subway in the rush hour with 3 little children. I had Yuval sleeping in my arms. The other one was sitting in his stroller. And another one was holding my slacks like that because, you know, it was so crowded that I just didn't have
Any space.
where to hold, you know, where to lean on, nothing. And nobody got up, nobody. And this was for me like a slap in the face. And the television, I hated the television because I felt like I'm losing my children. They were in the TV set, you know, all the time. I was talking to them, nobody was answering me. I mean, it was ridiculous.
The passage of time gradually dissolved our ties with Israel. We experienced the Six-Day War and Yom Kippur War only through American television. The heroic images portrayed the Israeli as a proud and victorious soldier, and I was filled with childish admiration and a wish to be like him. After 10 years in America, I returned to Israel to enlist in the army. Before I left New York, my mother sculpted my portrait, just in case something should happen. A few days later, she became superstitious and quickly sculpted portraits of Yoav and Yuval. The military service was a test of my identity. I felt it was the one place where I could rid myself of American characteristics I may have acquired over the years. By accepting the challenge of being the soldier, I hope to regain my Israeli identity.
אני יותר בטוח בעצמי. אני מרגיש לא הרגשה כוח, אבל זאת הרגשה שאני יציב. לא יודע, ככה זה בניו יורק. כולם מתאמנים וכולם ככה הולכים בטוח כאילו שהם הרקולס. אז keeping with the crowd, you know, keeping pace. They're there.
You think I have potential like for a strong body?
Yeah, but you have very narrow shoulders.
Narrow?
Your shoulders are very narrow, man.
Wait. We got measures. Turn around. Not narrow.
Sure,
You
yeah.
just don't have that much muscle.
We have short clavicles. I'm narrow shouldered too. But you'd put on good size because we have decent genetics from dad, mom, and dad.
Why did I leave my home and family? Maybe because I shared my mother's longing for Israel, and maybe I simply wanted to finally do what she could only talk about. I hoped my return would encourage the others to follow my example.
Because of mom, I was very, gung-ho on Israel. Like, my perceptions of Israeli people and Israeli life had nothing to do with anything at the time. I was a little kid running around playing soccer. It had nothing to do with anything. I was a you get older, you perceive people a lot differently. You see them on a different level. At the time, I wanted to go to Israel. I wanted to serve in the army. It was cool. I was infatuated with the idea of being a soldier. Not anymore.
What made you change your mind?
You did. You made me change my mind when you came back. When you came back, you were like, go to school, don't waste your time with the army, it's not worth it. And you know, and Dad also saying the same thing. Basically, you're the one who changed my mind, because I was going to go. Didn't know that, did you?
Yeah.
Yuval was attracted by the romanticism of weapons and heroes. All I could do was tell him about the grim daily routine of military life. I really didn't want the responsibility for a decision I thought should be his own. Yoav still doesn't understand why I chose to spend 3 years of my life in the army.
אתה בא מנקודה שאתה חושב מה אתה, מי אתה. אני לא חושב שזה כל כך חשוב לענות על השאלה הזאת. בשבילי זה לא נחוץ. See how that there's no you've got to change אתה ישראלי נטיות אני לא יודע איך להסביר את זה כל כך זה משהו מאוד חריף הכל חריף בארץ ההומור חריף אתה אף פעם לא יודע אם מישהו צוחק איתך זה לא כזה הומור בלי strings attached זה תמיד משהו מאחרי זה בגלל שהחיים קשים בארץ there's always something about the next day in Israel that you have to worry about, it seems to me.
An annual celebration for the armed forces in Tel Aviv at a city square just minutes from my home. I usually try to keep my children away from these displays of military might. As it is, we're a nation of soldiers. War stories told by fathers and grandfathers have become inseparable from Israeli heritage and identity. As I remember, Memorial Day in America is traditionally a sales day at the big stores. In Israel, it's a day for remembering what's been lost in the cause of independence. Israeli roots of armor and steel. After 5 years in America, my father filed applications for citizenship. In a courtroom filled with excited immigrants, we stood up and pledged our allegiance. My mother remained seated.
I feel that Israel is really my country, and I never called this place like my home, and I live here for a long, long time. I could never say it's my home, never, never. I don't like the system, I don't like the way of life here. The only one thing I like here is art. That's all I like, really. And since I started here, I feel like, you know, this is the only one thing who keeps me really here. Nothing else, nothing.
My mother started sculpting relatively late in life. What began as a hobby gradually became an obsession. In time, her Israeli friends gave way to American colleagues who shared her interests. But of course, that never lessened her desire to be in Israel, if only for a visit. I've always thought that my mother felt guilty about leaving her country and becoming an American. The decision by Tal and I to raise our children in Israel seems to have alleviated some of that guilt. My home and my children have become the anchor, which guarantees continuing ties with the homeland. Nitza Arfa was born in Tel Aviv to parents who emigrated from Czechoslovakia and Hungary in the 1930s. She likes to tell a story how as a child she threw orange peels from the balcony at patrolling British Mandate soldiers. It was in the years before the country's independence.
איפה אתה רואה דברים כאלה היום, תגיד לי? מה שעשו לזה. אני הורדתי את זה בשנה שעברה, אחד מהם. לקחתי למזכרת, הנה הוא. פה. בעינינו. הלכו וצבעו את זה, הרי זה הרי נפתח, וזה יש לי את זה בבית. אני אכניס את זה באחד מהפסלים שלי. ואני פשוט זוכרת לטובה את הזמן שגרנו פה. עד גיל 15. היו חיים מאוד יפים פה. מלא ילדים, עם הבריטים, עם העוצר שהם היו מטילים פה, ועם מחבואי הקופסה ברחוב מיכל, עם בועז ונמרוד וכל אלה. נחמד.
Stories from her childhood always make me envious. At the Maccabi Club, I try to imagine the experiences, the friendships, and the excitement during the years of struggle for independence.
פשוט גועל נפש. את החומה בנו כדי שלא יוכלו להסתכל פרי מבחוץ על משחקי כדורסל, שלא יציצו. וזה היה להם שכל. תראה, זה אני זוכרת מה שבנו, שכאן יש איזה ג'ורה. הטריבונות פה. שם חיסלו אותם. אתה זוכר את זה עוד. בוא, זה מרגיז אותי.
אמא.
פשוט מרגיז.
בואי.
זה פשוט מרגיז אותי, אני.
למה?
כי זה... היה חלום של כל ילד וילדה של הימים האלה, להגיע למגרש הזה, לשחק כדורסל.
During summer vacations in Israel, my mother always brought us to the club. It was her way of trying to share with us the experiences of her youth.
מה הדבר שהכי קשה לך בלעזוב?
האמת? הארץ. השמש. מזג האוויר, החום, הזיעה, הצעקות, הלכלוך, הגועל נפש מסביב. קשה לי לעזור, אני אוהבת את כל זה. תמיד אהבתי.
Four times a year, Yoav drives from Los Angeles to Las Vegas to gamble in the casinos. What can be more American than a city that counts money around the clock? I wonder if Yoav really fits into a place like this.
זה אמריקה זה לא אמריקה שאני חי בה. זה לא אמריקה.
זה סמל של אמריקה שאתה חי בה.
כן, זה אני יודע. אבל אני לא מרגיש שאני, אתה יודע, אנשים בארץ הזאת לא מרגישים שאתה חלק ממה שפה. אני פה מרגיש עדיין כמו זה, הורידו אותי בארץ הזאת, ואני יכול לחיות פה. אני מנסה עדיין. זה ניסיון ארוך, אבל אני מנסה.
Inside the casino, gamblers accept the invitation to insert coin. Yoav and I lost money at the slot machines and the blackjack tables. It's this reflection of American culture that has always made me feel like an outsider.
מה רע בזה? מי כתב שאתה צריך להיות שייך? אני באמת לא מרגיש שאני שייך לזה. גם לישראלים אני לא מרגיש כך. שאני רואה ישראלים ברחוב פה, בארץ, בכלל לא. אני לא שייך. תראה את הדבר הזה, המכוער, השמן הזה. אתה יכול לתאר את החיים שיש להם? גם הביתה יושבים, שותים בירה מול הטלוויזיה. אתה יכול להיות שייך לדבר כזה. זה אמריקאים כאילו white trash כזה. זה אחד יופי, שלום. זה אמריקאים, they're shallow people, אין אתגרים, הם יושבים, עושים כסף וזה. זה מה שחשוב להם.
If that's how he feels, why doesn't Yoav try to live in Israel? His criticism sounds like an echo of my mother. It's as if nothing's changed in the 25 years in America. Not even my father's friends, all Israeli immigrants like himself. Yuval's girlfriends, on the other hand, have always been American. And I still wonder if he feels anything for Israel.
My upbringing, at least half of it was Israeli, from mom. Dad was very neutral. Dad didn't try to influence us one way or another, but basically told us the way things are. We're American citizens. We live here. We were there. I've been living here 24 years. So I'm American. It's part of me. I live the American culture. I personify the American youth, to the T. Motorcycle, Z28, working out, working in a bar as a bartender, going to college, You can't get more American than that,
Los Angeles Airport. Yoav is waiting for Anne, his fiancée, arriving from New York. Mutual visits every 2 months have maintained a 7-year relationship. Anne and Yoav, a relationship that seems to bridge race, culture, and religion.
It smells so good. Put me to sleep.
What a compliment. I put him to sleep.
In the meantime, I'm wondering how they'll raise their children.
Well, I was brought up without any structured kind of religion, so I mean, it's not very important to me, like, to raise them Catholic or Christian or anything. So, I mean, I think
Don't be Jewish.
they should, yeah.
Well, I'm not one to.
Well, he's not. He's an atheist anyway.
Yeah, but they'll know about.
I think they should know about all.
They'll know about everything, but they will. I will instill in them Jewish
Jewish values.
Jewish values.
Jewish heritage.
Jewish tradition and holidays. I won't do the Christian holidays. We'll do the Passover and we'll do the Hanukkah.
What are you talking about?
What?
We'll do both.
I'm not gonna do Christmas.
No Christmas?
Christmas.
What's wrong with Christmas?
No Christmas.
Just like Hanukkah. It's a tradition. It's not a
Well, we'll put a
religious-
tree in the house. We'll bring your little tree.
A little tree.
I don't know. There'll definitely be a Hanukkah thing, but you can get the Christmas tree. I won't really. I'll let, if you want to do that, you can. But, I'm not gonna really. I'll be in the corner or something.
Those small compromises, necessary in every relationship. Anne and Yoav's children may not even be half Jewish. But does it really matter what they'll be? Which holidays they'll observe, and whether they will or won't speak Hebrew?
אז אני אדבר אליהם אנגלית. אז מה הבעיה? אני עם אמא שלי מדבר צרפתית, וזה לא מפריע לי, עמית. אני עם אחותי מדבר צרפתית, עם אחי מדבר צרפתית. ועם הסבתא שלי, אתה זוכר אותה, הייתי מדבר ספרדית. So, what's the big deal?
לסבתא עבדה כפפה. לא, לא, לא!
לא, לא להוציא. תקשיב לסיפור שנועה קוראת לנו. נועה מקרה לנו סיפור.
לסבתא עבדה כפפה.
When Noah and Ido were born, Tal begged me to speak to them in English. I tried, but realized that I couldn't. I wanted to raise them as Israelis, with a clear sense of identity that I never had. My brother's children may well be the next generation of citizens of the world. They'll be able to introduce themselves as Chinese, Israeli, American, Christian Jews. Maybe the future will witness everyone crossing borders and mixing cultures.
יהיו מכשולים. אבל אני רואה אותנו עוברים אותם. נשמע קלישה כזה, אבל שהאהבה שלנו היא תתגבר על הכל.
אל תביא לי ואל תכין לי פה מהאוכל שלי אנשים, כן, שתאכל בבית. אבל זה לא מעניין אותי.
נכון, נחמדה עמית?
אז מה?
שאני...
מה אני חייבת לה? אני חייבת לה ארוחות?
זה לא שמת את זה במקרר?
אני לא יודעת, אני לא אכלתי פה פרמז'ן. מי אכל? אתם אכלתם. באמת קצת כמסים ליד,
שיוצא פה משהו.
די, אמא. זה לא יצא לי הרבה שוב.
לא חשוב, זה מספיק.
למה אתה לא מתחיל להתאהב בה?
למה שאני אתחיל להתאהב בה?
נחמדה, אני לא יודע.
בסדר, אז מה?
היא נוצריה, אני לא רוצה.
היא לא נוצריה, אמא.
היא לא נוצריה? יהודייה?
לא יהודייה, יש לנו מספיק אחד...
יהודייה, אמא.
סיני בעניין.
אני הולך להתחתן עם כושי.
Hey, you're gonna have to drive faster than that, man. I gotta get to work. Yuval works as a bartender at a topless club in New York. Obviously not the ideal place to meet a nice Jewish girl.
I don't want to be tied down. Because I like to do my own thing. I like to get up and go when I can. When I find someone who I want to share things with, I'll get married. I want to have kids.
You gonna have Jewish kids or American kids? Or Israeli kids?
I'll have whatever kids come out. Doesn't matter, black, white, Chinese. Doesn't matter. Kids are kids.
Doesn't matter to you? Does it matter to you if they're raised Jewish or Christian or Muslim?
To me, Judaism is not a religion. It's an identity. For me being Jewish. I say I'm Jewish even though I don't practice the religion. But I am Jewish because that's my identity. And I'm proud of it. Very proud of it. I don't go to temple. I don't celebrate the holidays really. But I'm a Jew boy.
The term Jew boy only signifies the differences between Yuval's world and my own. Towards the end of my stay in America, Yoav arrives for a visit.
חשבתי שהלכתם לדיינרס. מה? חשבתי שהלכתם לדיינרס. דיינרס? לזה, לפנקייק. אבל...
Say hello to your old man.
Hello, Erika.
Are you babe? Okay, okay, good. Looking good.
Thank you, love. שני הקבצנים קנו לי רק זר פרחים אחד. אתם יכולים...
6 קון אחד.
אתם יכולים...
Good to have you, babe.
When Yuval finally woke up, the others had gone, and that's the way it was. For 4 days, I tried to bring everyone together for a normal family scene, but somebody always had an excuse to be away. Yuval worked at the club and went to the gym. Yoav was seeing Anne. Mom was working at the studio, and Dad was selling package tours to Israel. I part with my family and leave New York. I'm on a plane returning home to Tel Aviv.
We went to Israel together. Had an emotional experience that you remember on the plane coming back. It's the last time I can remember. It's the first and last time I can remember that I just broke down. I was crying uncontrollably. I don't know, I didn't want to leave. I mean, I'm never for sure about my future, but 100% sure. But maybe I felt at the time that it's something I won't have. Maybe the fact that Anne was with me brought that out, because we're not going to live in Israel.
If I have to run, if I have to hide, I have a place to go. The homeland. You know, and eventually I'll return to live there. I'm pretty sure of that. It's a sanctuary for all the Jews in the world.
January 1991, the Gulf War. Iraqi missiles hit Tel Aviv. Inside the sealed room, I remember a conversation from long ago in New York.
למה אדם חושב שצריך שתהיה לו זהות לאומית? אני לא יודע. יותר קל לו עם זה. אני חושבת שבאופן כללי, אנשים צריכים להיות מזוהים עם משהו. צריכים שורשים, הם צריכים לצאת מתוך משהו כדי לחזור אל התוך הזה.
כשאתה אומר ישראלי, יש לזה איזה מובן. מה זה ישראלי? אתה מבין? אני אף פעם לא הבנתי את המונח הזה, ישראלי.
The experience of the war made me feel for the first time since I moved back to Israel that I am finally an Israeli and no longer an immigrant. In the summer after the war, we drove to the airport to meet my parents.
איפה הנשיקה שלי שאת חייבת?
איפה הנשיקה שלי שאת חייבת לי כבר שנה? בכלל מדבר איתו? אז למה אתה לא מדבר אליי?
Meeting and parting have become a tradition in my family. Since 1966, we have traveled the route between Tel Aviv and New York many times. The idea of a close-knit family my father always talks about will continue to exist mostly in our hearts and minds. As far as my family is concerned, since 1966, it seems every year is a good year for tourism.